evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, as always, Miguel Magallon. And as always, President, Founder, CEO of Magallon Entertainment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I present to you a follow-up update clip on Elizabeth Warren versus Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve, Part 2. Tonight on this clip, I am going to give you a recap of what happened in the initial battle between Elizabeth Warren and Jerome Powell of the Federal Reserve, Part 1. Then I'm going to give you a full breakdown analysis of what just happened last week between Elizabeth Warren and Jay Powell of the Federal Reserve, Part 2. And then, in conclusion, I will give you what I think is going to happen and how I think this battle is going to end between Senator Elizabeth Warren and Jerome Powell of the Federal fucking Reserve. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we break down Warren versus Powell, Part 2. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, you already know what to do. Ladies and gentlemen, get the pen in the pads, get the pen in the pads, get the pens and the motherfucking pads! And let us begin to listen. So, 3 months ago, I sent you guys a clip, and on that clip, I played for you guys the exchange between Elizabeth Warren and Jerome Powell when Jay Powell was summoned to Capitol Hill to testify in front of, Congress, Senate, all these, pinche babosos out there in Capitol Hill. And at that time, 3 months ago, a lot of people were anticipating a pause on interest rates. They were anticipating a soon pivot and potential rate cuts on interest rates. And they were hoping and praying that inflation would just continue to magically go lower, and not just lower, but meaningfully lower. And when they summoned Jay Powell to Capitol Hill earlier this year, they were basically wanting to ask him, what is going on with the war on inflation? What is your plan with higher interest rates? And what are you doing to mitigate the potential cost of a recession to the U.S. economy in the name of killing inflation using higher interest rates? How are you able to balance this? What is your game plan? What is your strategy? What are you looking at? Is there anything that you're not looking at? And how are you interpreting the data that you're looking at? And Jay Powell had to testify. Jerome Powell had to defend himself. And he was basically invited to his execution. Because when these Republicans, when these Democrats, when these congressmen and senators got their holds on him, they wanted to annihilate him. They wanted to crucify him. And they wanted to sacrifice him. Because they wanted to make a statement. They wanted to make him a martyr or a financial symbol that represented the fact that they had no control over interest rates. It is this man's choice and decisions over interest rates that is sending the economy into a recession, and the pain that Americans are witnessing and experiencing every day on their city streets, from rent prices to gas prices to food prices, and that it is out of their control. It is not their fault, and the blame lies squarely on the Fed. And they wanted to use this opportunity, they wanted to take advantage of this moment in time in history to acquit themselves of all responsibility and wrongdoing, and basically place the blame of what is going to happen and what is starting to happen in the economy squarely at the feet of Jay Powell and the Fed. And Jay Powell had to sit there and take it. He had to sit there and fight for himself. He had to sit there and stand for himself. because every single person on Capitol Hill was out for his head. And the one who attacked him the most, the one who gave it to him the most, the one who attempted to destroy him the most, was none other than Senator Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas herself. Ladies and gentlemen, take a listen to the first exchange between Elizabeth Warren and Jerome Powell of the Federal Reserve. Take a listen to what she's explaining to him, take a listen to what he's explaining to her, and take a listen to each of their perspectives on the impacts of higher and higher interest rate hikes and higher for longer interest rate levels. Take a listen, write it down, and tell me what you think about this.
The Fed has raised interest rates 8 times over the last year in what has been the most extreme rate hike cycle in 40 years. The Fed's goal is to slow inflation, and your tool, raising interest rates, is designed to slow the economy and throw people out of work. So far, you haven't tipped the economy into recession, but you haven't brought inflation entirely under control either. And maybe the reason for that is that other things are also keeping prices high, things you can't fix with high interest rates, things like price gouging and supply chain kinks and a war in Ukraine. But you are determined to continue to raise interest rates, so I want to take a look at where you're headed. In December, the Fed released its projections on the state of the economy under your monetary policy plan. According to the Fed's own report, if you continue raising interest rates as you plan, unemployment will be 4.6% by the end of the year, more than a full point higher than it is today. Chair Powell, if you hit your projections, do you know how many people who are currently working, going about their lives, will lose their jobs?
I don't have that number in front of me. I will say it's not an intended consequence.
But it is, and it's in your report, and that would be about 2 million people who would lose their jobs, people who are working right now, making their mortgages. So, Chair Powell, if you could speak directly to the 2 million hardworking people who have decent jobs today, who you're planning to get fired over the next year, what would you say to them? How would you explain your view that they need to lose their jobs?
I would explain to people more broadly that inflation is extremely high and it's hurting the working people of this country badly. All of them, not just 2 million of them, but all of them are suffering under high inflation, and we are taking the only measures we have to bring inflation down.
And putting 2 million people out of work is just part of the cost, and they just have to bear it?
Well, will working people be better off if we just walk away from our jobs and inflation remains 5-6%?
Let me ask you about what happens if you do this. Since the end of World War II, there have been 12 times in which the unemployment rate has increased by 1 percentage point within 1 year, exactly what you're aiming to do right now. How many of those times did the U.S. economy avoid falling into a recession?
You know, it's not as black and white as very
Just
very
looking at the numbers, it actually is pretty black.
Alan Blanger's written a book on this,
and there have been 12 times that we've seen a 1 point increase in the unemployment rate in a year. That's exactly what your Fed report has put out as the projection and the plan based on how you're going to keep raising these interest rates. How many times did the economy fail to fall into a recession after doing that? Out of 12 times.
I think the number is 0.
I think the number is 0. That's exactly right. So then the question becomes, we've got 2 million people out of work. Can you stop it at 2 million people? History suggests that the Fed has a terrible track record of containing modest increases in the unemployment rate. Once the economy starts shedding jobs, it's kind of like a runaway train. It is really hard to stop. In fact, in 11 out of the 12 times that the unemployment rate increased by a full percentage point within 1 year, unemployment went on to rise another full percentage point on top of that. If that's what happens this time, we'd be looking at least 3.5 million people who would lose their jobs. So, Chair Powell, if you reach your goal and 2 million people get laid off by the end of this year, and then, just like in 11 out of 12 times that unemployment has risen by a point in a single year, it keeps on rising, and then we've got 2.5 million people out of work, we've got 3 million people who get laid off, we've got 3.5 million people who get laid off. What's your plan?
Well, right now the unemployment rate is 3.4%, which is the lowest in 54 years. And we actually don't think that we need to see a sharp or enormous increase in unemployment to get inflation under control.
I'm looking at your projections. Do you call laying off 2 million people this year not a sharp increase in unemployment?
I would say 4.5%.
Explain that to the 2 million families who are going to be out of work.
We're not targeting any of that. But I would say even 4.5% unemployment is well better than most of the time for the last 75 years.
In other words, you don't have a plan to stop a runaway train if it occurs. Chair Powell, you are gambling with people's lives, and there's a pile of data showing that price gouging and supply chain kinks and the war in Ukraine are driving up prices. You cling to the idea that there's only one solution: lay off millions of workers. We need a Fed that will fight for families, and if you're not going to lead that charge, we need someone at the Fed who will.
Boom, ladies and gentlemen, she came to whoop that fucking ass, ladies and gentlemen. She was there for all the smoke. She came in there fucking, woo, just twin barrels gauging, man. She was fucking ready for war. Man, I gotta tell you, I tell you what, America, I tell you what. I might not be a fan of Elizabeth Warren, but on this day, I fucking love that bitch because she was absolutely correct. She was fucking right. She was dead, spot on, correct. Everything she said was the truth. She's absolutely telling the truth for once in her life. Don't get me with that fucking Indian fucking bullshit Pocahontas shit she had going on during the presidential election, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, on this particular debate, on this specific exchange, on this motherfucking battle between Elizabeth Warren and the Fed, she's outright correct. And she came for that ass. And she delivered a fucking beatdown because she's absolutely correct. Let me hit on some of the things that I absolutely loved about it. First off, her main thing, and I'm going to start with the meat and potatoes here. The main thing, her main argument that makes her so upset is that Jay Powell in the Federal Reserve is looking to put out 2 million Americans out of work. Give or take, 2 or 3 million people are going to lose their jobs this year, and they're going to have to find employment somewhere else. But basically, he's looking to take away at least put 2-3 million people out of work. And by the way, these ain't minimum wage jobs. I want you guys to fucking pay attention. I want to be very, very specific about this. He's not trying to take away your job at McDonald's. He's not trying to take your job away at fucking Chipotle or Chick-fil-A. He's not trying to fucking get you fired at like Arby's or Wendy's or Applebee's or fucking, you know what I mean, IHOP or some shit like that. He's not after your job at fucking Subway, or Chuck E. Cheese or McDonald's. No. He's not trying to kill minimum wage employment. If anything, he wants more people to work minimum wage. Because when you work minimum wage, you don't have any disposable income. If you don't have any disposable income, if you don't have any extra money, if you don't got any fucking, spare dinero, then guess what? You don't have the means to spend money on stupid shit. Because when you work minimum wage, paycheck to paycheck, hands on your fucking knees for a living, you can't go out and eat. You can't take your kids to fucking Chuck E. Cheese. You can't afford to go to Disneyland or Six Flags this summer. You don't got the fucking dinero. You don't got no feria. You ain't got no bread, homie. So the Fed is not trying to say, "Oh, I want to take away jobs from McDonald's or fucking Wendy's or fucking Jack in the Crack or you know what I mean? I don't want anyone working at Taco Bell this summer." No. He wants your ass to work at Taco Bell. He wants you to work at Pollo Loco. He wants you to work at Arby's. He wants you to work at Denny's. He wants you cleaning the toilet at Jack in the Box. He wants you serving fries at In-N-Out. He wants you giving all these fucking Karens their coffee at fucking Starbucks and McDonald's this summer. He wants you to work on your hands and knees, paycheck to paycheck, minimum wage, and minimum fucking wage. Why does Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve want that? Why do they need that? Because when you don't have any disposable income, when you don't have any money left over at the end of the month, when you ain't got no discretionary spending, you can't afford to go out this summer. You can't afford to buy your kids Christmas gifts or birthday gifts or holiday presents. You can't afford to, give your wife a great Mother's Day. You can't afford to celebrate Father's Day. You can't afford to spend money in the economy. And if you don't have money to spend in the economy, then that means nobody has money to spend in the economy. If less and less people have money to spend in the economy, then that means businesses are going to witness less and less demand. If there's less demand, what are businesses going to do? They don't want to sit on dead inventory. They don't want to sit on all these products, goods, and services and not make any money on it. So what's going to happen to all of these businesses? Not just small, medium, and large, but even these gigantic, monastery businesses like the Amazon and the Walmarts. Again, if demand starts to disappear, if demand starts to dissipate, if the consumer is no longer strong because they lost their good high-paying job at Boeing or Lockheed Martin or who gives a fuck, and now they got to work on their hands and knees at McDonald's this summer, Taco Bell, Pollo Loco, Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, you fucking name it, minimum wage. And by the way, it's not bad enough that it's just minimum wage. Most of these jobs, it's not just the fact that they're minimum wage. You want to know what really stresses people out? That everything's part-time work. And why? Because like we explained on the podcast for the last 12 months, businesses do not want to hire full-time because they don't want to pay you the fucking benefits, especially not this summer when most of you guys are just going to be seasonal anyways. They don't want to pay you the fucking benefits that you would get if they made you full-time. So most of these companies, most of these businesses, because it's more cost efficient, more cost effective, all they're doing is minimum wage, part-time bullshit. Minimum wage, part-time bullshit. Minimum wage, part-time bullshit. And you know what? That's how the Fed wants it. That's how the Fed likes it. That's what makes the Fed happy. Watching you work on your hands and fucking knees, working paycheck to paycheck. Not just this summer, but for the rest of your fucking natural life to the day you fucking die. Why? Because like we always explain on this podcast, this country is not a country. The United States is not a nation. It is not a country. It is a fucking business. And we are in the business of financial slavery. Our business model only works properly when the top 5% can enjoy their best life while the bottom 90% have to work paycheck to paycheck for the rest of their life. And I'm not just saying this to be funny. I'm not just saying to talk shit. I'm telling you because it's a fucking fact. All these rich people in the economy that are out there popping bottles and going to the clubs and enjoying their best life every fucking day that you're really going to see on Instagram this summer, that only works when for every one rich person we have on Instagram, we have like 20, 30, 40 poor people who are on Instagram working paycheck to paycheck this summer. This business model only works in the economy when the top 5, 10% enjoy their best life while the bottom 80, 90% have to struggle in life. That's the only way this shit makes sense. So again, the Fed doesn't want to take away your job at McDonald's. The Fed doesn't want to get you fired from Jack in the Box. The Fed doesn't want you to stop working at Chipotle. No, Because all the rich people need you there. They need you in the trenches. They need you in the ghetto. They need you in the barrio. They need you in the middle of fuck nowhere. They need you working at the gas station. They need you working at the strip club. They need you working at the bars and restaurants. They need you working at valet service. They need you at the fucking bar as a bartender. They need you as a waitress at the restaurant. They need you on your hands and fucking knees this summer. Because somebody's got to check them into the hotel room. Somebody's got to take their luggage up. Somebody's got to park their car. Somebody's got to give them a massage. Somebody's got to do their hair and nails. Somebody's got to rub their feet. Somebody's got to make their food. Somebody's got to deliver their food. Somebody's got to pick up the trash. Somebody's got to make their bed with a mint on the pillow. Somebody has to work for them to make sure that they're happy and they're having fun this summer. And the people they need to do that is fucking you, America. So, when Elizabeth Warren says, why are you looking to take away 2 million jobs this summer? Again, she's not saying 2 million poor people jobs. No. She's saying 2 million middle class, high income jobs. Why are you attacking the middle class? Why are you trying to collapse the middle class? Why are you hurting all of these people who thought they finally made it in life because they worked hard their entire life? Why are you trying to kill 2 million of them? And Jay Powell, who will not admit this, but I'm here as the fucking general to explain to you the fucking business model, right, of the United States of America and its government. Let me explain to you the reason he's going after the middle class, the reason he's going after high income, the reason the Federal Reserve is looking to kill 2 to 3 million jobs in the year 2023 is simple. Because he needs more people to work minimum wage. He needs more people to work at the bars. He needs more bitches to work in the strip club. He needs more bartenders. He needs more waitresses. He needs more busboys. He needs more valet drivers. He needs more people cleaning up the toilets at Jack in the Box. He needs more people serving French fries at McDonald's. He needs more people cutting up the meat at Arby's because they have the meat. They need people working in the economy, paycheck to paycheck, hands on their fucking knees, because there's too many people out here spending money on stupid shit. Too many people out here trying to have fun this summer. Too many people out here trying to enjoy their best lives this summer. There are too many fucking people out here spending money, and he can't tolerate it. He can't accept it. He can't allow it to be. Because again, the top 10% can only be happy if everything is done for them. And right now, there's not enough people working hard-paying jobs in the economy. There's not enough people at McDonald's. There's not enough people at Wendy's. There's not enough people at Starbucks. There's not enough people at In-N-Out. That's why sometimes you go on the internet, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, whatever the fuck, and you see all these memes of like, oh, this restaurant had to close early because there wasn't enough workers, or we're only working in limited capacity and limited hours because we don't have enough fucking chefs, and we don't have enough bartenders, and we don't have enough cashiers. And that's why sometimes you go to these places like a McDonald's, like a Arby's, like a Wendy's, like a fucking, Chick-fil-A, and you have all these signs saying hiring immediately, hiring now, please apply, we need somebody ASAP, we need somebody today, we need somebody tomorrow, we need somebody tonight. And then you go to apply and they're like, yeah, well, we're only hiring part-time right now, but if you're interested, you can start tonight. And that's what frustrates people in this economy. Yes, the Biden administration, they're not lying. It's factual. There are a lot of jobs in this economy. There are plenty of jobs in this economy. There's actually 1.5 jobs for every person in this economy. Jobs are everywhere. Jobs are plentiful. Jobs are all over the fucking place. But it's all minimum wage, part-time bullshit, part-time bullshit, part-time bullshit. How are people supposed to survive on that in this economy? You can't. That's why you have so many millennials and Gen Zs moving back in at their mama's house. That's when you go to San Francisco, New York, Chicago, Miami, Chi-Town. What do you see? Roommates everywhere. Stanky ass roommates. But people got to do it. Why? Because they can't afford to pay the rent on their own. That's why they have to live with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different roommates. That's why they have to live with their in-laws. That's why they have to live with their fucking mama's house. That's why they got to live with their tia, their tia, their tio's house. That's why people are doing that this summer. Because they can't afford to live on their own anymore. because nothing out there is paying anything more than minimum wage and part-time bullshit. But that's how the Fed wants it. That's how the Fed likes it. That's how the Federal Reserve needs it. Because once again, otra vez, the top 10% can only enjoy their best life when everything is done for them. And the only way everything gets done for them so they can be happy and live their blessed life is if the other 90% work on their hands and fucking knees to the day they fucking die. That's how this business model works, America. So, when Elizabeth Warren comes out and fact checks his ass and says, you're looking to kill 2 to 3 million jobs this summer, again, not low-paying bullshit, not that, Walmart, Target, Chick-fil-A, Arby's, Wendy's, not that shit. He's looking to kill 2 to 3 million high-paying jobs. And that's why she said, these are Americans who are, paying the mortgage on time. Quote, she didn't say people who are paying their rent on time. She said these are people who are paying the mortgage on time. Why? Because they're mostly homeowners. Why? Because middle class is mostly homeowners. Why? Because these are people who thought they finally made it in life. And he wants them to not only lose their careers and go find a job. Let me say that again. He wants them to lose their careers so they can go get a job working at fucking McDonald's. But he also wants to force them to sell their house. He wants them to force them to sell their assets. He wants to force them to liquidate their portfolios. He wants to force them to sell all their assets and investments. He wants to force them back into fucking poverty. Why would you do such a thing? Why would you even want such a thing to occur or happen? Why would you feel like you need that to happen? Because he basically is saying, there's too many rich people in this country. There's too many people in the middle class. And now there's even too many people in the upper middle class. Or as like we like to call it at Magallon Entertainment, the upper middle room. There's too many people in the middle class. Or maybe I should rephrase it like this. There's too many people who act like they're in the middle class. There's too many people who pretend they're in the middle class. There's too many people who spend like they're in the middle class. And if you have too many people spending, and you don't have enough bartenders, you don't have enough restaurants, you don't have enough valet drivers, you don't have enough fucking cleaners, right? Then rich people aren't going to be able to live their best life. And oh my gosh, it's my life and I want to live it now. I deserve this blessed life. So basically, he needs to put more people back in the trenches. He needs to get some of these, as we like to call them, financial runaway slaves, meaning people who used to be poor, then in a low interest rate environment, they basically quote unquote came up in life. Now they started making good money in life, especially in 2020, 2021. And now here we are in 22, 23. And these people who used to be poor, people who used to work on their hands and knees, people who used to live and work in the trenches, because we're in a zero interest rate environment, getting stimmy after stimmy after stimmy after stimmy after stimmy after stimmy after motherfucking stimulus check. Now all of a sudden these people got big-headed. Now all of a sudden their egos are gigantic as shit. Now all of a sudden they think they fucking made it, bro. But if all these people left these minimum wage fucking shifts because they think they fucking made it out and they escaped financial slavery, and now they're in the land of financial freedom, financial independence, the land where we do what the fuck we want when the fuck we want because we write our own fucking paychecks, so we do what we want when we want. If too many people start acting like this, too many people start spending like this, then they're not going to go back to work, are they? They won't. And so now we have basically a bunch of runaway slaves, and here comes Jay Powell on his horse, and I hate to make it racial, but, these are the fucking, analogies we have for you tonight. There's too many runaway financial slaves and financial runaway slaves. And he's basically saying, I need to bring some of you back to the plantation. I need to get some of you back on your hands and knees. And I need to get some of you going back to working paycheck to paycheck. But the problem is, all these people that came up from poverty, all these people who made it out the mud, made it out the ghetto, made it from the trenches, all these people who survived the fucking battlefield and started learning about, stacking assets and investments, you really think they're going to go back easily? You think they're just going to walk back to the plantation? You think they're just going to, willy-nilly go back to working on their hands and knees? Fuck no, America! So now you have all these people in the middle class that should be working paycheck to paycheck, but they're doing everything they can to survive. They're doing everything they can to fight this, and they will not fucking come quietly. So the Federal Reserve said, okay, watch this shit. Higher interest rate hikes, another interest rate hike, and you know what? Maybe this summer, just maybe, hopefully, for the love of the fucking bear case thesis, we do another interest rate hike. Because there are still too many of you who refuse to work on your hands and fucking knees in this economy this summer. So I'll just continue to murder businesses. I'll continue to fucking destroy the consumer. I'll continue to increase your fucking interest rates on your credit, cards and your credit payments. I'll continue to destroy credit scores. I'll continue to slow down this economy more and more and more, even if it means sending it into a motherfucking recession. Because I will, by any means necessary, ensure that the top 10% live their best life as possible, and I will kill as many of you as I can possible, financially, to make sure that as many people are working on their hands and fucking knees as possible. Because right now, there are still too many people in the middle class and the upper middle class. And even honestly, quite honestly, I think there's also too many rich people. There just is. I've never seen this many millionaires in my life. And I always say this stat, but I'll remind you of this statistic. Back in 1989, 1983, there was only 3 billionaires alive. Today, we have almost 2,000 billionaires. Back in the 1970s, 1980s, we had less than like a million millionaires. Now we have something crazy stupid like 20 million millionaires. There are too many millionaires in the economy, and there's too many billionaires in the world. And even now, there's still too many people in the middle class and above. Even now, in the upper middle class, there are just too many fucking people who are living like that, who are refusing to work because they believe they made it out like that, and who, most importantly, are spending like that. And I think that's why the Federal Reserve has to continue to either do further interest rate hikes, or at the very least, at a bare minimum, leave interest rates much higher for much longer. And why the bears say there is no pivot coming, and they will not be decreasing interest rates at all for the remainder of the year, because there are still too many rich people, too many middle class people, and now too many upper middle class bitches too. And that's why when Elizabeth Warren comes out and says, you're looking to kill 2 or 3 million people in this economy financially and get them to lose their job, people who are paying their mortgages, people who are making their car payments on time, people who know how to fucking, like read a credit card statement and know how to make their, pay their credit card bills and get a good FICO score, good credit score, people who know how to do the right decisions financially, people who understand the importance of, buying assets and investing, people who understand the way the game works. You're looking to kill all these people even though they did nothing wrong. Jay Powell knows this. He knows they did nothing wrong. These are good, hardworking Americans, and these are people who pay attention, and they understand what's happening in the world economically and financially. They understand the stock market. They understand crypto. They understand something. That's why they're middle class and above. That's why they made it to the upper middle class. That's why these people are rich. That's why some of them are millionaires and multi-millionaires and multi-millionaires and multi-millionaires and multi-millionaires. And some of these fucking whales and mega whales are multi fucking millionaires, sitting on 400, 500, 600 milli. And yes, some people in the world are fucking billionaires now. And we have almost 2,000 billionaires in the world. And now Elon Musk looks like he's attempting to become the first trillionaire in the world. If it ain't him, it's probably Jeff B. But it's going to be one of them. Fuck it. Might even be Warren Buffett's old ass. Hell, might already be fucking Bill Gates eventually. But it's going to be somebody. Somebody in the world will become the world's first trillionaire. I hope it's Elon. But might be Jeff B. We'll see what happens. But the point is, you have all these billionaires across the world. You have all these millionaires and multi-millionaires and multi-millionaires all across this fucking economy, right? All these rich people, all these bougie fucking people, all these fucking Karen people, all these fucking, uppity, tight fucking big people in the middle class and the upper middle class. There's just too many fucking rich people. And we don't have enough people working in the trenches. We don't have enough people working in the cities. We don't have enough people working on their hands and fucking knees. We just don't. So credit Elizabeth Warren for making a point about this, because I think she's dead right. The Fed is looking to kill 2-3 million jobs, but at what price? You know what I mean? This is more like a sacrifice than it is a fucking mission at this point. But the Fed says, this is what we believe needs to happen. Now, he'll say, we don't think that this is what's going to cure inflation and this is what's going to bring down inflation. But you know what? It'll help. Can we at least agree on this? It'll help. It'll definitely help. Because once again, like we said at the start of this podcast, if you take 2-3 million people who have high-paying jobs, who have careers, who have degrees, and you bring them back to their hands and knees, that's 2-3 million people now who don't have discretionary spending, who don't have extra passive income, who don't have money to spend on stupid shit. And I say stupid shit loosely, but you guys know what I mean. He needs less people going out this summer. He needs less people at the bars, at the strip clubs, at the hotels this summer. Because right now, it is jam-packed. Right now, it is at fucking capacity. Right now, there's fucking people partying everywhere this summer. And there's not enough people working at the hotel suites. There's not enough people working at the laundry service. There's not enough people working at the gas stations. There's not enough people fucking delivering gasoline. There's not enough people working in the trenches this summer. And that's what's causing the friction. That's what's causing the chaos. That's what's causing the stress. And that's what's putting pressure on this economy and the infrastructure in this economy. So, I think Elizabeth Warren sent a powerful message. She's absolutely right. It is in the Fed's own words and their writing that they're looking to increase the unemployment rate from 3.5% to 4.5%. They've been trying to do this for the past year and a half now. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They failed. They're losing the war against unemployment. Now, it doesn't mean I don't think they're going to win this summer, but for the past 12 consecutive months, they have not been winning. They've been losing for 12 straight months. The Federal Reserve, interest rate hike after interest rate hike after interest rate hike. They cannot, for the love of God, raise the unemployment rate. And they've been trying. They've been using the ammunition. They've been pulling the fucking trigger. They've been squeezing this bitch till the clip is empty. And unemployment still remains historically at 50 years lows at 3.5%. Now, I told you my reasoning for this, and we're going to talk about this later this week. I think the real reason the unemployment rate is so low is because all these jobs are just part-time work, part-time work, part-time work. So, yes, it's true that the unemployment rate is historically low, but I would also argue that the reason it's historically low is because the average American has never had to work 3 jobs before. And right now, we got this report, again, this was about 2-3 weeks, right? We got a report by Bloomberg, I believe it was, that stated the average American now works 3 jobs per week. How does the average American work 3 jobs? Easy, because nothing's full-time. So most people will work one job that's 20-30 hours a week, then another job that's about 15-20 hours a week, and then maybe a third job on the side that's probably 5-10 hours a week. So you have one job that gives you 20-30 hours, another that gives you, 15-20 hours, and then another that gives you 5-10 hours. Now the average American not only works more jobs than ever per week, but they're also working more hours per week. Because the average American is like, shit, I need to work 2 or 3 jobs just to fucking, break bread. But on top of that, if you add up all the hours I'm working between my 3 jobs, Saturday through Sunday, not Monday through Friday, that's historical shit. That's back in the day shit. That's the way things used to be. Nowadays, most Americans, especially low income and minority communities, are doing what? They're working Saturday through Sunday now. Fuck a weekend. Fuck a day off. Hell no. Most Americans work almost every freaking day now. They can't afford to take a vacation. They can't afford to get time off. Right? But the upper middle class bitches, oh hell no, all they do is go on vacation. I know, I'm one of them. All we do is want to take the summer off. All we do is want to go on a trip. All we want to do is go to fucking Knott's Berry and Disneyland and Six Flags and this and that. And I want to go to Cancun and I want to go to Hawaii and I want to go visit Jamaica and I want to take a trip to Puerto Rico and I want to go to Brazil and I want to go to Italy and I want to go here and I want to go there. It's my life and I want to live it now. So you have all these fucking middle class and upper middle class bitches and above. Don't get me started on the rich, the filthy rich, the super rich, the mega rich, and the fucking disgustingly rich LeBron James kind of money, right? You really don't think they're gonna go out this summer? You don't think any of these NBA, NFL, fucking Patrick Mahomes people going to go out this summer? Hell yeah, they're in Italy right now. They're visiting Paris today. They're taking trips to Cancun every day. They're always in Hawaii. They're always in fucking Jamaica. They're always in Puerto Rico. They're always in Cancun. They're always in the Caribbean. They're always in Honolulu. They're always somewhere in the world enjoying their best life. Dubai, fucking, you know what I mean? Like, they're always somewhere nice. They're not going to stop traveling this summer. But in the upper middle class, they're also traveling this summer, and the regular middle class wants to go out this summer. And then poor people, they want to go out, even if it means maxing out credit cards this summer. So everybody going out. The roof is on fire. We don't need no water. Let that motherfucker burn. Burn, motherfucker, burn. We don't give a fuck. Everyone's trying to go out this summer. And the Fed knows this. They acknowledge this. They realize this. So the Fed's out here trying to raise the unemployment rate and get some of these middle class and upper middle class bitches and bring them back down, working to their hands and fucking knees. And they're trying to raise the unemployment rate, but they fucking can't. They can't. Because people said, fuck it. If I can't work one full time, the poor people that is, then I'll work 2 jobs. I'll work 3 jobs. Fuck it. I'll work 4, 5 jobs. I'll work overtime. I'll work double overtime. I'll work triple overtime. I'll work the night shift, the graveyard shift, the morning shift, the weekend shift, the side shift. And poor people who are struggling more than ever right now because of inflation, right? They're saying, fuck it, I'll just work more hours. I'll get more shifts. And that's why when you look at most poor people who are not middle class and upper middle class and above, you look at the middle class and below, they're struggling like a motherfucker right now. And they feel like they're just being overworked because they don't have reinforcements. They need some of these middle class and upper middle class people to come back into the trenches, to come back to work, to help them in the fucking, in the war zone. But those people who are middle class and above, the upper middle class and the rich, they're like, ew, I don't want to go back to work. Ew, I don't want to go whacking on my hands and knees. Ew, I don't want to pick that up. Ew, I don't want to clean that. Ew, I don't want to do that. Ew, I want to do with that bitch ass attitude. Ew, I don't want to work in a toxic work environment. So they refuse. These middle class and upper middle class bitches, they refuse. For the love of God, I cannot say this enough, America. These bitches refuse to go back to fucking work. Like you're going to have to, like I said, Jay Powell going to have to get on his horse coming straight from the plantation, and he's going to have to drag these runaway slaves. He's going to have to drag these bitches back on the plantation. There's no other way. They ran away. They understood, got a taste of that good life. They got a taste of financial freedom up north, right? Again, the whole, I know it sounds bad that I keep, referencing slavery, but it's true. Like, again, the financial runaway slaves in the South, they made it up north to fucking financial freedom, right? And now these fucking, all the plantation masters, all the plantation owners, which are businesses, right? Said, hey, we don't have enough people here. We need to get some of these bitches back over here, working over here. Because Lord forbid we pick our own goddamn cotton, right? So, so they need all these financial slaves to come over here and go back to work for them. Minimum wage, part-time bullshit, hands on their fucking knees. And there's not enough. And now all the rich people are like, how come we're not getting good service? How come there's no premium service? How come I'm not getting high quality service? And they're like, I'm sorry, sir, ma'am. We just, we don't have enough employees right now. We've been trying to hire out the ass, but these bitches just won't listen. They don't want to come work for me because all they want is good paying jobs that pay benefits and are full time. And I told these bitches, you get what you fucking get. And I'm not giving you full time. I'm not giving you fucking benefits. And I'm not giving you a 40-hour work week. A hell to the nah. I'm going to give them part-time bullshit, minimum wage fucking earnings. And then on top of that, I'm not even going to tell them what their schedule is until the week before. You know what I mean? Like, that's how they want to run things. That's how they want to operate up in this motherfucker now. But people refuse to go back. Because once you make it out, once you get a taste of that champagne life, once you experience the good life, once you see what it's like to make it on the other side, you don't want to go back to working on your hands and knees. You don't want to go back to working at fucking, Jack in the Box and fucking, Arby's and fucking McDonald's. Like, you don't want to go back to that. Once you see how easy it is to make it on the other side, especially with the power of compound interest, you'll never want to go back to that life. So the Fed is basically saying, I will fucking crash and burn this economy to the ground if that's what it takes to force you back into that life. And I think that's exactly what he's doing, and I think that's exactly what he's had to do the entire fucking time. And that's why here at Magallon Entertainment, the general is not only a bear, but I'm a mega fucking bear. And I think this is just the way things have to be if the Fed's going to fulfill their mandate and they're going to accomplish their mission in life. I don't think there's any other way. So I think this is something that's really frustrated Elizabeth Warren because I think to a certain degree she's not standing up for fucking. It's funny, she always says like, "Oh, I don't like Wall Street. I don't like all these rich people. I stand with the poor people." No, not really. In this situation, she's actually representing the middle class and above. In this situation, she's probably standing up for her secret campaign donors, whoever that is, middle class and upper middle class bitches, because they're the ones who are the most frustrated. Poor people, they don't really give a shit. Poor people are just trying to wait for the end of inflation. They just want this shit to go away. Poor people are struggling right now because gas is too high, food is too high, and rent prices are astronomical. Poor people are just frustrated because every time they try to move out of their mama's home and they look for an apartment or a house to rent or home to get, it's always like, oh shit, $2,200 here, $2,400 there, minimum $1,600 over here for this tiny ass studio apartment. And there's a lot of poor people that are like, fuck, man, I can't even afford to move out this summer. Rent prices are still too motherfucking high. And then they go to the grocery store, they go to the gas station, you know what I mean? It's just too high. And it's just hard for them. They can't afford to take a day off. But even if they did have some time off, where are they going to go? It's too expensive for them to go to Disneyland. It's too expensive for them to go to Knott's Berry Farm. It's too expensive of them to go have fun in LA. You see my point? Like, inflation is still too motherfucking high for poor people, especially core inflation. So, you know what I mean? I think poor people, they don't necessarily care about the interest rate hike. They just want inflation to go away forever because right now they are getting destroyed by higher food prices, gas prices, and rent prices right now. It is an absolute crucible right now for poor people. So, you know what I mean? They really need things to come down. But it's hard for these asset prices or these things to come down when rich people are out here in the upper middle class and middle class are still out here going spending. And Jay Powell's like, okay, there's too many of you that are spending. I need some of you guys to, return to the trenches, to come back down to earth, as we would say, to go back to the fucking, hands on your fucking knees one day. But they don't want to. They refuse. And so I think the only way Jay Powell's going to force them to, and again, I say force them to, is he's going to have to continue to leave rates higher for longer. And potentially after this summer, I think he's still going to have to do more rate cuts, in the back half of 2023. That's my, official prediction, my opinion, right? Because I don't think core inflation is ever going away. Macro inflation is coming down, but core inflation has been the same for 12 straight months. These rent prices, gas prices, and food prices are not fucking rolling over. So I think he's still going to have to inflict more pain in this economy in order for him to complete the mission. I really fucking do. So with that being said, I think Elizabeth Warren won part one of Elizabeth Warren versus Jay Powell in the Federal Reserve. And now we go into part two. So again, quick recap. Part one, I think she was absolutely right. The Fed's never been able to only increase only increase the unemployment rate just a little bit. Every time they do it, they always overdo it. And that's why I don't think the unemployment rate is just going to stop at 4.5%. I'm in the bear camp that believes the unemployment rate is going to go above 6%, which means it's not just going to be 2 or 3 million people who lose their jobs after this summer and during this summer. I think it's going to be closer to 8 or 9 million people who end up losing their jobs and their careers in 2023. But I think that's the way the Fed wants it anyways. I just think they're too scared to say it, but I think that's actually what they wanted all along. Just my opinion. So, with that being said, I think Elizabeth Warren, I think she delivered a great ass whooping. I think she was spot on, and I think she was dead right. And unfortunately, I think Jay Powell was also right, because I think Jay Powell's not telling us the truth. And the truth is that this isn't something that they're scared of. This is something that they've been planning all along, was to destroy this economy in the name of inflation so that rich people can go back to living their absolute best life. Just my opinion, ladies and gentlemen. So now we go into Elizabeth Warren versus Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve, part fucking 2. Take a listen.
Welcome back to Power Lunch, live in Washington for the Fed decision on interest rates, which we just got. Joining us now, Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, member of the Senate Banking Committee. Senator Warren, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
You have been critical of Mr. Powell, and you, I think, are going to be critical of this move today.
I just think it's the wrong direction. Look, all the signs are going in the right way. That is, inflation is abating, the economy's softening. We've seen GDP begin to pull back a little. And we've acknowledged all along that the problems we have that have been driving prices higher are not all problems that you can fix by raising interest rates. You know, we have a war in Ukraine that messes up supply chain and energy costs and food costs. We've had a lot of price gouging that giant corporations don't want to talk about, but families are sure feeling it. And you can raise interest rates, but it's not going to affect those. You've got other tools you have to work with. We've had supply chain kinks that are beginning to unkink. Again, not affected by interest rates. And what concerns me is that Chair Powell hasn't just raised interest rates. He has raised them on a curve unlike anything we've seen.
In 40 years.
Deepest in 40 years. In 14 months, he's gone up 5 points here. And that's when things start to break. Plus, look where he's aiming. He's aiming to put people out of work.
So I take your point that inflation has come down, but it is still elevated by recent historical standards.
Absolutely.
And that exacts a very severe price, particularly on low-income individuals.
Absolutely.
People on fixed income. They hurt because of that. So if you're committed to the idea of bringing inflation down, how can the Fed help do that if not merely by raising interest rates?
Well,
what are the other tools they have? And let's put Congress off to the side, because there's a fiscal side here too.
Right. But with respect, I think it's the wrong frame. When you start it by saying, what else can the Fed do? The Fed is a one-trick pony. The Fed raises interest rates and lowers interest rates, basically. So they look at the world through that lens. But look at the effect of price gouging, for example. And the data, depending on who you want to read and what you want to look at, but at least 40% of the increase in prices attributed to price gouging. That is, look at industries where there's greater concentration, and what you see is prices went up more sharply, and you see that margins went up, that profit margins were going up. The Fed is the wrong actor to go after that. That's the FTC.
In your view, they've done more than even they should have done. And to squeeze out what inflation remains, you would look at, legislation to address price gouging?
Legislation could be part of it, but the FTC is part of it, the Attorney General. We have laws in place that give us some tools on price gouging. I'd like to see us do more. That would be the legislation part. States also have anti-price gouging laws, and they can bring those to bear. Partly, you can use jawbone on it, too. The chairman of the Fed, the president of the United States, can talk about these industries with specificity, about who's in there pushing prices up, more than is justified by an increase in cost.
You know, it's funny, I hear from a lot of people who have been saying, knowing we're going to speak with you today, they go, normally I'm not a fan of Senator Warren's. They might work on Wall Street, for instance. They might be on the other side. But they say, but I agree with her on this issue. Now, they might not agree with all of the reasons that you cited, but they say the Fed is going to create a lot of job losses if they continue to hike here. So there's odd bedfellows where, as we consider sort of like the progressive view on this, and to some extent the people who are deeply in the markets are both calling for a pause here because they're concerned there's going to be a lot more pain to come, economically speaking.
And you know what really troubles me about that? It's that the pain to come won't be a surprise. It won't even be incidental. Go back and read the Fed report. For example, the Fed report from December, which specifically said their target is to increase unemployment by 1 full point in less than 12 months. Now, what that means is go explain to 2 million people who are going to lose their jobs, people who are making their mortgage payments and their rent payments and their grocery payments right now. Sorry, for the good of the overall economy, you have to lose your jobs. But also look at the rest of it. How many times out of the last 12 times that unemployment has gone up 1 full point in a 12-month period, have we avoided recession? How many times?
Zero.
Zero. And here's the other one. How many times when unemployment has gone up by 1 full point have we been able to stop it at 1 point?
Never.
Once.
Really?
Once.
When?
So it's been once. I don't remember which.
Yeah.
But the point is, it almost never happens.
Yeah.
So the odds here, this is where the Fed is aiming. That's the part that gets me so worried about this. First, they do not have all the tools to fix the problem. It's the wrong, it's a mismatch.
They have one sort of blunt
That's
instrument
right.
of that
But they
and
keep
quantitative
saying
tightening.
that's their measure of success, and their measure of success is 2 million people lose their jobs, and statistically speaking, the odds they shoot us straight into recession are really high.
Let's try.
Woo! I'm telling you, there is a lot to digest there. There is a shit ton of things I want to break down here. First things first. She started this on the initial ass whooping up at Capitol Hill, and she brought it back up again, and I think she's spot on for doing it. She's deadly accurate. I think she's 100% correct on this. The main thing that is causing inflation in the U.S. is price gouging and the war in Ukraine. I want to start off with the war in Ukraine. Obviously, the war in Ukraine and our entire supply chain basically coming from China isn't doing anyone any favors. And I'm not going to get into this whole thing with gas prices and oil prices again, but I'll just give you a quick recap about it because I know we're running out of time here. But long story short, Russia and Putin decided to invade Ukraine and take all of their resources, and they took all the resources that they stole basically or took away from Ukraine, and they're basically selling it on the open market to the Europeans, to the Chinese, to the Saudi Arabians, and to the Venezuelans. And all these countries, like a China, like a Saudi Arabia, like a fucking, Venezuela, Canada, Europe, you fucking name it, when they're short on goods or they don't have enough resources for their countries, do you think they're going to feel bad that Russia's basically selling all this shit that they stole from Ukraine? Absolutely. But do you really think they're not going to buy it anyways, especially if Russia's trying to sell it on the low? Hell no, they're absolutely going to buy it, right? So the point is, yeah, Russia invades Ukraine. They basically steal, take control over all of these resources and all these minerals and all these goods and all this stuff that they have in their country that they were selling around the world to basically sustain their country. Russia basically came in and took their lunch money. And now they're selling it on the open market. And the main buyers are, the Saudis and the Chinese. And all these countries who are basically buying this shit, on the low, on the hush-hush from Russia, most of them are open about it. They're basically saying, look, at the end of the day, it's a dog-eat-dog world. I don't, endorse or condone what they did to Ukraine. But at the same time, I got struggling people in my own country. I got people starving in my country. I got people with real core issues in my country. And at the end of the day, we're all just trying to get reelected in our countries. So yeah, maybe people don't like the way this shit went down and the way we're going about it. But at the end of the day, everyone just wants lower gas prices and cheaper food prices. And as long as gas is cheap and food is cheap and we can, give everyone an affordable home to live in, then that's all really people need, and that's all they really care about. Because all their other money is just going to be discretionary spending that they can go out and have fun and fuck off this summer. So, for most of these politicians around the world, most of these world leaders, on planet Earth, it's not just the Chinese, it's not just the Saudis, and it's not just the Venezuelans. It's, political leaders and presidents and fucking dictators all around the world saying, fuck it, if you're going to be selling it, might as well be selling it to me. Because again, I got people struggling in my country. I got people who need these goods and resources in my fucking country. And I'm the one who needs to get reelected in my country. So I'll take anything I can get, especially if you're going to sell it to me on the cheap. Hell yeah. So, that's something that Russia's kind of been doing with all these resources they stole from Ukraine. But of course, America, we want to be the good guys. Dun, da, da, dun, Superman, Batman, superheroes of the world all the time. We basically said, no, bad Putin, bad, really, really bad. Okay, bad Mr. Putin. We're going to teach you a lesson. And we basically said, we're not going to buy oil from your country anymore. Okay, great. I understand why you did it. Some people agreed with it. Some people didn't. But now, we're not going to drill any more oil because Lord forbid. So once again, where are we going to get this oil from? We have to get it from the Saudis and we have to get it from the Venezuelans. Now, for those of you guys who aren't up to date on your macro, politics, let's just say the Venezuelans don't really like us very much in their country. So that's why Joe Biden and his administration constantly has to go and fly over to the Saudis and get on their hands and knees and basically beg them for cheaper oil. But the Saudis basically told us to fuck off and eat a bag of dicks. So the Saudi Arabians don't really want to sell us oil at the same price that we used to buy it from the Russians. Why? Because they fuck with the Russians. They don't like us. And we're not going to buy from China because what China feels about us. It's boo-foo up in that fucking country. Buy us, fuck you. So we're not going to buy oil from the Chinese. We're not going to buy it from the Russians because bad, Putin bad. We're not going to drill any more oil in our country because Lord forbid, right? So what other fucking choices do we have? We could buy it from the Saudis, but if we do that, they're going to charge us a motherfucking arm and a leg. They're going to tax us a premium if we buy oil from their country. So what else is there to do? You can't buy it from the fucking, Venezuela. They don't like us. We can't get it from the Saudis because they want to fucking, premium tax us. We can't do business with the Chinese because we're trying to fucking not be so dependent on them. They know they fucking own us. And we don't want to do business with the Russians because bad, Putin bad. Well, Europe doesn't have any fucking oil because they're all trying to do clean energy. Canada doesn't have enough oil. They're still buying from the Russians and the Chinese. So who the fuck else is there for us to do business with? Nobody. And we're not going to drill anymore in their country. So what's the only other choice? We're tapping into our reserves, our savings account, which is called the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And basically for the last 12 straight months, give or take, I think 9 months now, we've basically just been draining oil from our tap reserve, our Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the SPR. And anyone can go on Google. You can look at this online and just type in SPR levels. It's called SPR, Strategic Petroleum Reserve levels. And the Strategic Petroleum Reserve levels in our country are at the lowest levels in like 60 years. And so now everyone around the world, particularly the Saudis and the Chinese, they know that the only reason gas prices have been getting cheaper in this country for the last 6-9 months now, going into summer, is because we've been unloading and using all the oil in the SPR month after 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 month. What happens when we run out? What happens if we run out? Are we really just going to fucking just keep, taking out from our, strategic petroleum reserves, which are only supposed to be used in an emergency? Are we really going to take that shit down to zero? Because then the closer we get to zero, the sooner we're going to have to just fucking flip over and say, fuck it, we'll buy it from the Saudis. But if we run out of oil in this country when it comes to the SPR and we have nothing left in the fucking savings account, it's completely empty, and we're not going to drill more oil either in this country, then where are we going to get enough oil to fucking, supply this country? Ooh, I know, go back to the Venezuelans and the Saudis. But if we go back to them again, except this time we don't have any oil in savings, we ain't got nothing in savings, how much more do you think they're going to charge us then? Even more of a motherfucking premium. You see my point? So I think that's something that, again, higher gas prices, like, I get it, but that's not something that the Federal Reserve controls. That's not something that Jay Powell has authority over. That's not something that higher interest rates is going to fucking change. Higher interest rates don't fucking solve any of this. You see my point? Then on top of that, they're like, well, look at the real estate market. Real estate went up so much so fast. I'm like, yeah, because there's not enough fucking homes in this country. And then you look at what's going on at the southern border. We're just letting in 10,000 people a day, 10,000 here, 10,000 there, 20,000 here, 20,000 there, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 people crossing the fucking border, right? Legally, illegally, doesn't even fucking matter. Every motherfucking week in this country. Where are they going to live? Where are they going to stay? Where are we going to put them? How are we going to house them? There's not enough fucking homes in this country. So the Fed coming out saying, oh no, we need to kill real estate inflation. It's gone up too fast, too high. Bitch, there's nowhere for people to live. We need to build more homes in this country. Stop fucking the middle class and forcing them to sell their homes. Even if they do sell their homes on a fucking low bid, guess what? We still won't have enough homes in this country. There's just not enough supply. Too much demand. That's why you have all this homelessness in this country. There's not enough fucking homes in America. How are you the smartest people at the Federal Reserve, but you're so fucking stupid about what's going on in this country? We don't have enough oil, America. There's not enough oil. And whether you like it, you want to admit it or hate to admit it, we're not going to drill any more oil. Even under Trump's administration, we still couldn't drill enough oil because we're basically running out of places to drill. All the places left that have all this oil, untapped oil in this country, is all basically wrapped up in legal legislation, for fucking protecting the environment and the rainbows and the unicorns and, oh no, think of the turtles and the coyotes and the fucking, the giraffe or the hippo or some fucking bullshit, right? So there's a lot of places in this country that have a shit ton of untapped oil, but it's all in basically like, you know what I mean? Like environmental fucking grounds that are to be protected, until the death of us. So even under Trump's administration, he still couldn't get us to drill enough more oil. So even if he were to come back and Papa Trump were to become president one day, who cares? In the meantime, in between time, we just don't have enough oil. And you know what I mean? And we're not going to drill anymore anytime soon. And even if we do, it's probably going to be too little too late. So what's the short-term solution? Right? How are we going to address this situation this summer when everyone's trying to go out? Everyone wants to go on vacation. Everyone wants to go on a road trip. Everyone wants to enjoy spring break. Everyone wants to enjoy a fucking good time this summer. Guess what? That means fill up the gas tank, fill up the gas tank, fill up the gas tank. And by the way, it's not just, it's poor people too. Because even if they have to max out their fucking credit cards this summer, they're going to try to have a good time because it's my life and I want to live it now. And the middle class, they don't care. The upper middle class, they really don't care. And rich people don't give a flying fuck about gas prices. They still rolling up in a Bugatti to the fucking airport to hop on their private jet. You know what I mean? On a fucking mega yacht somewhere. They really don't care. So if everyone's going out this summer and everyone just wants to have a good time and we just want to party and bullshit and party and bullshit this summer, then how the fuck is anything ever going to change? There's not enough oil. Key strategic petroleum reserve levels are at 60 years lows and they're still fucking falling. At some point, we're going to fucking run out. And then when we run out, how are we going to replenish it? How are we going to refill it? The Saudis? The Venezuelans? Oh, they're about to tax the shit out of us this summer if we do that shit. So guess what's going to happen to gas prices? They're going to skyrocket. What's the Fed going to do in response to that? Oh, I know, higher interest rates. More people lose their jobs and go on unemployment. How the fuck does that change anything? How does that solve this? How does that make things better? It fucking doesn't. Oh, I know. I'm going to force all these rich people to sell their homes. There's too many people coming into the country. There's too many people who are living with their parents in this country. There's too many people with dirty-ass roommates in this country. There's just not enough fucking homes. You know what I mean? Getting rich people to sell their homes, it's not the solution. It's not the long-term answer. The solution and the long-term answer is, bitch, build more homes. Make them more affordable. Come on, man. And so that's why economists get so frustrated in this country, because they understand what the Fed is trying to do. We need to raise unemployment. Again, we need the high income earners to lose their jobs and go back to working on their hands and knees in the fucking trenches. That way the rich people can live their best life, their blessed life, the perfect life. I get it. I get that part of the equation. But how is that going to solve gas prices? How's that going to make it cheaper food prices? How am I going to get cheaper, like this prices? Like, dude, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, that might make it, that's going to pull down demand at the restaurants and the bars and the hotels this summer, because all the upper middle class bitches are going to get laid off and unemployed, and then they're not going to be able to travel as much this summer. So if there's less demand at hotels, bars, and casinos, that might force these hotels, bars, and casinos to lower their prices this summer if there's not as much demand as there once used to be. I get that part of the equation. But the other part goes back to Elizabeth Warren's core argument. How the fuck is that really going to make food prices cheaper? How is that going to bring down gas prices? How is that really going to make, housing more affordable? How's that going to solve the immigration issue? Like, you know what I mean? Like, these higher interest rates, they can only solve and do so much. The rest of it is out of their control. It's out of their hands. It's out of their power, right? And by the way, even if you raise the unemployment rate, these companies, they've been doing price gouging, and Elizabeth Warren's called them out on it. She says we need to pass legislation to make sure these companies aren't just charging us more money in the name of inflation, but really they just want to stack up more profits. We can't allow this to happen. The problem is, all these large businesses and corporations that are doing all this price gouging and fucking raising the prices of everything this summer, they're the same motherfuckers who are the campaign donors for most of these Republicans, Democrats, senators, and congressmen this summer. So what the fuck? You really think all these politicians are really going to pass legislation that says you can't keep raising prices forever, when the only reason they got elected to the Senate and to Congress on Capitol Hill to begin with was because of these large corporations? You think they're really going to fucking, attack them like that? No. So you can say all you want, yeah, we're going to pass legislation. Bitch, you ain't about to do a damn thing. Because nobody on the left or the right, none of the Republicans or Democrats are going to support you, because they all bow to their campaign donors, which happens to be the same companies who are doing all the price gouging this summer. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I hear what you're saying, but you ain't about shit, cuz like you ain't about to do nothing, because no one's going to have your back on this. You know what I mean? It's like, what? It's just not going to happen. So, so again, I understand what she's saying about the war in Ukraine. I understand the whole thesis on like higher interest rates aren't going to stop anything happening with oil and gas and food prices and rent prices and housing affordability. I get all of that. I understand that raising the unemployment rate and getting these people fired from their high income jobs, it can solve some inflation in the economy. Again, hotel prices, hotels, casinos, restaurants, strip clubs, Uber Eats, DoorDash, those prices will come down if the unemployment rate goes up. But there's other things that, if the unemployment rate goes up, it's not really going to solve. And again, that goes back to like food, rent, not enough houses and shit like that. So the Fed is only solving half the equation. And so I think that's kind of like where we are. And again, Elizabeth Warren, I think she's accurate when it comes to this, does Congress need to address price gouging right now? Absolutely. But again, they won't, because most of these companies are taking advantage of price gouging, are also the biggest campaign donors for most elected officials in this country. She cited that this is the fastest rate tightening cycle in U.S. history. She's absolutely right. But again, I think that needs to happen. Because there's too many rich people in this country. There's too many middle class and upper middle class bitches in this country. And the Fed needs to force them to go to work on their hands and knees. They need to drag their asses back to the plantation by their feet. And I think they need them to get to, back to working on their feet. Because, there's just too many people in the middle class and above, upper middle class and above, too many rich people in this country. Now, they're not going to bring them all back down to their hands and knees, but right now, we still don't have enough people working these, graveyard shifts and these minimum wage shifts. And that's why I think there's so many poor people who, again, they're just saying, fuck it, inflation's really high. I'll just work 2 or 3 jobs. I'll work 70 hours a week. This is like the first time ever I've seen this many people work this many jobs and work this many hours per week. You know what I mean? But because they have to, inflation's still too high for them. And so, I think they're rooting for people to lose their high income jobs this summer, because the more these people come off their pedestal and come back to the trenches, you know what I mean, and struggle to buy food to eat, the more the Fed does this to those class of people, maybe the more prices will come down. But unfortunately, they're not going to come down enough, in my opinion. And the reason they're not going to come down enough, in my opinion, is because certain parts of inflation have nothing to do with the unemployment rate or how many rich people we have in this country. A certain part of inflation has to do with what's going on in the macro, what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, what's going on in China, what's going on in Saudi Arabia, what's going on in Venezuela, what's going on in Canada, what's going on in Europe, what's going on in Ukraine. And I think those are the parts of inflation that the Fed can't control, the Fed can't stop, and the Fed doesn't even want to address. And so they're just saying, fuck it, we're going to do whatever we can by any means necessary to bring down inflation, even if it means causing a recession in the economy, to fix something that higher interest rates aren't going to be able to fix anyways. And because she's right, they're only looking through the world through one lens, and they only have one solution to everything, which is more and more rate hikes this summer. I think they're basically going to accidentally cause nothing but death and destruction. Not just this summer, but even after this summer. I think all of 2023. Just like I said, all of 2022. I think in the first half of 2022, poor people were getting destroyed because of inflation and no more stimulus checks or child tax credit money. You know, that money that's supposed to be for your kids, but nobody actually spent it on their kids. Yeah, that money that just went away. I think the first 6 months of 2022, I think that was death to poor people. Then I think the last 6 months of 2022, I think it was annihilation of lower middle class people. People who aren't necessarily poor, but they don't really have too much money. I think in the second half of 2022, they started to get destroyed because now they were getting infected not only by higher inflation, but by a slowing economy. And lower middle class people who are just starting off, just trying to make it out the hood, you know, they started to get tapped out and they started to see their cars getting repoed last summer. They were getting their credit scores maxed out last summer, or excuse me, credit card balances maxed out last summer. And they were pulling out loans out the ass last summer. Now I think the only people who are left are basically the upper middle class and above. I think it's people who make over $150,000 a year who are the only ones left to kill. And I think the Fed's going to keep on pulling the trigger until he knows that they've been killed. Because again, Elizabeth Warren is right. The Fed is looking to at least kill 2 to 3 million high income earning Americans. But I also think she's right that if they achieve that, they're probably not going to stop there. Once they get there, they're probably going to say, fuck it, let's kill another 2 or 3 million, and another 2, 3 million, and another 4 or 5 million high income earning Americans. Let's kill all these bitches right here, right now, since we're already here anyways. And that's why I think the unemployment rate is going to hit at least 6% minimum. I think we're going above 6% on the unemployment rate. Now, I'm not going to lie. We've been wrong the first 2-3 months of 2023. I thought the unemployment rate would have started to spike already. But I think poor people are taking advantage of it. And I think poor people are saying, fuck it, inflation is still way too high. Stimulus checks stopped over a year ago. Fuck it. If these poor people or if these upper middle class people don't want to come back to the trenches to sit at the table and eat, then I'll take those jobs. I'll take that extra shift. I'll take the graveyard shift. I'll take the night shift. I'll work on the weekends. I'll start a side hustle too on the side. And that's why you see so many people, poor people more than ever, working 2 to 3 jobs per week, working over 70 hours per week, working Saturday through Sunday every fucking week. And the upper middle class people are like, nope, I'm still not coming back home. Y'all can go fuck yourself. I'm not part of your family anymore. And I think the Fed is looking at that, hearing that, and listening to that and say, okay, watch what I do next. Hold my beer. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I think Elizabeth Warren is dead on accurate. I think she's spot on, and I think everything she's saying is absolutely right. However, I think the problem is, even though she's giving him an ass whooping of a lifetime, I don't think he gives a fuck. Because I don't think he fucking feels it. Because I think where she's wrong is the fact that she thinks that they should stop out of principle. They should stop out of necessity. They should stop out of morality. And I think he has no fucking morals. I think he has no fucking soul. I think Jay Powell is here as the Grim Reaper. He is the plantation fucking master. He works for the plantation owner. And the only thing he's been hired to do is bring the upper middle class and above back down to their hands and fucking knees. And to kill as many of them as possible and bring back as many of them as possible. Until inflation comes down below sub 2%. And to some that seems like a fantasy. But to Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve, I think they've been given the green light to accomplish this mission by any means necessary. Ladies and gentlemen, I expect brutality this year in 2023. I expect a full-blown recession. And I expect pain and annihilation in the highest magnitude. because I think this is what they wanted all along, whether you agree with me or not. But we will see by the end of this summer, and I think it's going to start as soon as this summer. I don't think they can stop. I don't think they should stop. And even if they do pause in the summer, I think that's just going to make inflation worse in the summer. And I think that's going to force them to come back to work in late 2023 with more interest rate hikes. Because I don't think core inflation is anywhere near coming down again. And I don't think they can. Not in this economy. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I remain a bear. I remain a mega fucking bear. But I agree with Elizabeth Warren. I just don't think Jay Powell fucking cares. Ladies and gentlemen, be prepared. Ladies and gentlemen, keep your fingers on the trigger. Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention to what's going on around you. As always, thank you for listening to the one, the only, the motherfucking general.